Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we're going to be taking a look at a brand new case from Fractal called the Define S. It comes in at two price points. You get the cheaper one, which is about £5 cheaper if you want a solid side panel. If you want the window, like I said, you'll be charged £5 more, and it bumps the price up to £69.99. So £65 and £70 respectively, if you don't count that missing penny. Now that is actually quite a strong and competitive price for Fractal, but they've gone about things a little differently with this one. It may look like the R5, which you'll see in a minute. It does have some striking resemblances to the R5, but it's also got a few kind of tweaks. They've done stuff a little bit differently from this, and it also looks rather similar to my server case. So we always start at the front and the top, and we're not going to change it. Headphone, microphone, 3.5mm jacks. We've got the reset switch, we've got the power switch, and the little cutout here, there is an LED there that lights up blue. So that's your power light. There's no light or anything built into the switch. This is kind of a very Fractal feeling switch, you'll know what I mean. Although the USB connections here are black, they are USB 3 connections with an internal USB 3. Anyone that's had a Fractal case before is now going to be expecting me to open a door, but this one doesn't. There is no door here. It's just a normal front panel which can be taken off, which we'll show you shortly. But what that does mean is, because it is quite plain on the front, there are no optical bays. That's right, children, there's no optical bays. When you remove the front, it exposes a long dust filter which goes the length of the case. There's two magnetic attachments, and then there's 3 tabs. It's really simple to remove it. It's like a door type of thing, and then you just remove it. The dust filtering is quite fine, but it's not fine enough that it's going to restrict airflow. It will obviously trap dust, but it's also going to be something that you're still going to want to keep an eye on to make sure that you don't let it build up. The cleaner you keep it, and the cleaner you keep your room, the cleaner your case will be. With that removed, it exposes the fan mounts for the front of the case. Now I have got 320mm fans mounted in the front of this, just to show you what you can get in there, and you'll see why when we get on the inside. But as standard, it comes with a 140mm fan fitted in the front and a 140mm fan fitted in the back. Now, it's at this point when you see the fan mounts and the like, that it does start to look very similar to my server case, and it does raise questions: where might they have got the idea from? Now, at this point, I will say that the case is only available in black, and when you, I'm going to point out these this mesh down this side, and then we do get round to the back of the case. I've already drawn your attention to it, so you'll be able to see where some of the airflow and stuff is going to come from. When we go back to looking at the front panel, and this is where all the airflow comes from, you can see it is a very plain design, but there is a grille right the way down the side of both of the doors. It's actually quite light as well. There's no sound deadening in the front like there might have been with the R5. And obviously when it's on, it's just a plain front which has got a brushed effect. But it's just so that the airflow just goes in the side. There is a little cutout on the bottom as well, but that's mainly for your hands to be able to grab hold of the panel when you remove it. When we go back to looking at the front panel, and this is where all the airflow comes from, you can see it is a very plain design, but there is a grille right the way down the side of both of the doors. It's actually quite light as well. There's no sound deadening in the front like there might have been with the R5. And obviously when it's on, it's just a plain front which has got a brushed effect, but it's just so that the airflow just goes in the side. There is a little cutout on the bottom as well, but that's mainly for your hands to be able to grab hold of the panel when you remove it. Moving on to the roof, I've not got these panels clipped in because I've already got stuff fitted on the other side which would have used the mounting points. But one thing I will say is, if you've used the R5, the top panels on these are much easier to remove. They've changed the tabs that hold them in place ever so slightly. There's like a little notch missing on these. It makes fitting them and removing them so much easier. But when we do get out the way, we can see that we have room in the roof for 340mm fans and 320mm fans. Fan spacing for the 120s are perfect for a radiator. That's a 360mm long rad fitted in the roof. It's actually the S360 Kelvin. One of the other things that I can say about the, especially the 120mm, is you can see that we've got a good 50 to 60mm offset from the back of the case, which will help you when fitting deeper radiators and stuff around your memory. When we do get in the inside, we have got some short memory fitted, but you can see that we've got a good amount of clearance there anyway. You've probably got a good 20mm if we were to have an enormously thick radiator fitted in this. But also what I did want to draw your attention to at this point is there's a slight indentation up here, and you can see that it will allow airflow to come up this way, because it's when this panel's off, you can see it's all completely free. When we do get round to the back and start talking about the hard drives, you'll be able to see this is the way the air can get out. If you were to have all the panels in, there is still a 10mm gap underneath, and that allows the air to still be able to radiate into the main chamber of the case, which can then get exhausted out with whatever airflow you have fitted into the system that you put in. These are just a few little details that when we get the back panel off, it'll all start to make more sense. With the back panel off, you can see that it's actually quite tidy. I've spent quite a bit of time trying to make this one look nice, and this is a full working system with a semi-modular power supply as well. We'll go through some of the details of the actual case itself, and then I'll tell you some of the little things that would to draw your attention to show you how tidy you can make this case if you want to. So, around the back of the case itself, you've got a good solid 22mm of room to be able to get all your cables and stuff in, which is ample amounts. There are ample also tabs to be able to tie everything down. You know the ones where you put a little bit zip tie through so you can zip everything down? They are scattered around everywhere. They literally are flooded with them. They really are just everywhere. It's brilliant. It makes things very, very easy to keep extra tidy. One of the other things is, which is very difficult to be able to show you with the last camera angle, is there is an indentation in the back of the case where you can see that the actual cable grommets themselves are on an angle, and you can see that you kind of have to direct the cables around the corner. But when we get to the other side, it does make things really nice and tidy. Actually, it makes it really nice and easy to use. It also gives you a really nice stash point at the bottom of the case. I mean, this section here is a good 45 to 50mm wide, so you could have quite a lot down in this bottom section. Obviously, depends on the rig that you're going to be using, but let your imagination run. It's got two mounts in the back of the motherboard tray for your solid state drives. Some people may think it's a bit of a shame to hide them around the back, but it does, again, help keep things very, very tidy. If you get a lot of your cables all hidden out the way, it means you can keep the main chamber all lovely and tidy. You can obviously just remove them by undoing this screw, and it just clips in, and then you just use your 4 solid state drive screws. When we move on to mechanical hard drives, you do have a choice of 3 mechanical hard drive mounts in the back area of the case, and this was the point when I said to you about airflow in the front and out the top, because this is the area that you have that mesh at the front that I showed you, and then there is a section at the top where the air can also escape up this way. So there isn't any active airflow for your mechanical hard drives, but one thing I can say is that it really doesn't make that much of a difference unless you're using a really, really high performance hard drive, and by that I mean like the old school Velociraptors and stuff like that. Active cooling with mechanical hard drives really isn't that necessary anymore. People think that it may make them die, but I personally think that if you look after them, you don't bang them around so much, and you have a good quality brand, something like Western Digital for argument's sake, they will last no end. I've actually run long-term tests with my personal home server, the old one, and I did find that having active cooling on the hard drives didn't really make that much of a difference to my temperatures at all either. So you obviously have the mounts for 3 mechanical hard drives in here, but you can also use them, thanks to the tabs, for solid state drives as well. So you can either have 3 mechanical hard drives and 2 solid state drives, or you could get a mixture in there as well. So you could have up to 5 solid state drives in your rig if you really wanted to. One of my only gripes with the case is this is the only grommet at the top of the case. Obviously you put your 8-pin through there, but if you were to run fans and radiators in the roof, that is the only designed way that you can get stuff through. I ended up with my 3 fans poking it through what I would say would be like the ventilation top for the hard drives up the top here, and I kind of poked it down and round and through, and that's where I put my 3 fans in there. Thanks to the way that the door's attached as well, there are some really nice ways that you can disguise your cables. But again, people always ask me about doing guides for cable tidying, but every case and system is so different. You really just have to put a little bit of time and thought into it, and it doesn't matter if you have to rip all of your cables out again to make one cable right. You can make things look a lot tidier. I mean, this isn't going to win any awards for being tidy, but at the same time it's probably a lot tidier than the majority of systems that are going to end up getting fitted in this. So then we move round to the business side of the case, and then you're obviously engulfed by that humongous, pretty much full length window. Just covers a little bit of the power supply there, which with this one I think is a little bit of a shame. It might have been nice just to have gone full width, you know, like a full-on window. But anyway, not the point. It's much bigger than the Fractal R5, significantly bigger. The Fractal R5 would have just stopped at the end of the graphics card, so you do get that extra bit of length there. And you'll understand why. I mean, the 320mm fans in the front should have given you a bit of a hint. Now, normally with the Fractal, we would now be looking at optical bays at the top and then hard drives. But they've done away with all of that to keep things perfectly simple. You've obviously got copious amounts of fan mounts in the front for 140mm and 120mm fans, same in the roof. As I said, we've got the Kelvin S360 mounted in the roof already. So we've got a 360mm rad in the roof, and you can see that you've still got ample room around your motherboard and everything. If you did want to put a radiator in the front and you wanted to go for a 360, you can get an 80mm thick radiator in the front with push pull. If you did go for that though, it does encroach on the roof area. So if you're going to go for a massive radiator in the front, you're probably going to be limited to a 240mm radiator in the roof. Again, with 120mm fan radiators, you can use the downwards real estate, and you really can get nice big thick ones in there. You could easily get a 60mm radiator in there, and if you wanted to go a little bit mental and you didn't want to, if you weren't worried about starting to covering parts up on the actual motherboard itself, you could probably get away with push pull as well. I would personally say that a 30mm thick 240mm long radiator in the roof at a push 45mm thick with push pull would probably be about the sweet spot before you're going to start running into configuration, not that it would stop you, but it would start getting hose into your water block and stuff a little bit more complex. But those options are all there for you. Obviously, keeping the front of the case all nice and clear means you're prime for those massive radiators. One thing that I will say though is without the optical bay mounts, it does mean that you can't run, obviously, optical bay reservoirs or pumps. If you were going to have a thick radiator in the front as well, I would seriously suggest thinking about the pump and the reservoir issues. The pump and the reservoir options that you have available to you before making your purchase. There are a lot of really nice D5 reservoirs that come in cubes, or you can have little reservoirs on top of your pumps. So have a look at those before making your choices, because the pump and the res combo for this case is going to be critical with your design. If you get that right, the rest will follow and it will all look amazing, because this really is about nice, clean looking rigs and lots of cooling options. And obviously when we're considering about these type of cooling options for a case that's only going to be coming in at £70, it goes to show you just how good value for money it is. You've obviously got dust filtering in the front as well. There is an extra mount down at the base here for another 120mm or 140mm fan, which is dust filtered along with the power supply mount. This is really going to be for, not necessarily for putting a radiator on, because it would end up fouling your power supply. This is more going to be for extra airflow coming up towards your graphics card and stuff. I personally think that this could have just been left plain and nice plain metal in the bottom to make it easier for you to mount pumps and stuff into, and there are a couple of mounts down the bottom for that kind of use as well if you did want to go down that route. But personally, I would have gone for just keeping this all clean so that it would have made things easier for mounting things in the bottom, you know, should you have wanted to. My only gripe about the way that the hard drives and stuff are mounted is it would have been nice if you could have had an option to have had the hard drives on this side if you will have wanted. Some people might have wanted to show their solid state drives up or something like that. But also there's these little vents here which are going to help with air passing through this side of the case, and then it would still be able to get out the other side. So there's little things there that they've done to be able to help a tiny little bit with if you did have mechanicals on the other side. But to be honest with you, if you're running a mechanical and you're running a mechanical as storage, then something like the Western Digital Green really doesn't require lots of active cooling anyway, and it's the type of thing that you can fit and forget. Obviously, if this is a 980, but if you were running a 295X2, for example, then you could easily have your 295X2 in here and then have the radiator mounted in the front and still have ample cooling above blowing through the back. And obviously that would mean that you could have your AIO like we've got here in the roof still as well. If you did have something like the Kraken or the Corsair options where you have the AIO mounted to your graphics card in an aftermarket option, you could obviously also get two of those mounted in the front and still have a 120mm intake to be able to help blow through for the rest of your cooling as well. So the layout and the options they're all there. It's just down to your imagination and what hardware that you want to put in it. One thing I will say is with such a big case, with such a big window, you do want to plan to make sure that you do keep things super uber extra tidy. I mean, I've tried to keep the business end of this really clean and tidy to show you what you can do with a very basic build. But obviously the more radiators and the more bits and bobs that you put in here, the extra, the more work you're gonna have to put in to try and keep it as clean and subtle looking as this. I also think with a black case, because yes, it's only available in black, which is a bit of a ball ache because Fractal have been renowned for white in the past, that something really contrasting like I've done here with the white power supply, the white graphics card and the white memory and the motherboard really does help set it all off. So in that last section, I probably went into a little bit more of the conclusion than I probably should have. But the be all and end all is it's an undoubted gold award. For £70 with that massive window, it's a bit of a billy bargain considering the cooling options that you've got available to you with it. Considering Fractal was so renowned really early on for adopting the white cases. I mean, we're talking about going back to the Fractal R3, which I was a personal fan of. It seems a bit of a shame that with something like this that they've gone away from it and only launched at the beginning with black. It's kind of a crossover point between the, say for argument's sake, the R series and then the Arc series. I think that's the kind of crossover point that they've gone with this. It does feel like an Arc, but it looks like the R. So it's kind of the best of the both worlds, but it's a shame that they've not followed that through with giving us white options as well. Yes, it does scream of such similarity of what I've done to my personal R5, where I modded the front for 3 fans to cool all my hard drives. You're now also going to be saying to me, but why did you cool your hard drives when you've been saying to us that you don't necessarily need masses of cooling? Well, when you've got 10 hard drives stacked on top of each other and you're going to be running them 24/7 for a couple of years, and you know that you're going to be forgetting to clean it, it's just to cover my arse with 1,000 and what was it, 1,200, 1,300 pounds worth of hard drives in the front. With this, unless you're not going to be putting enterprise level stress on them, although neither was I really. But if you've got a couple of those hard drives in the back, I really wouldn't worry about massive temperatures. If your hard drive does start to get warm, it can more often than not be a sign of it being on its way out. But if you've got a good hard drive with some from a decent manufacturer, you shouldn't have a problem. If you are overcautious about the hard drive nature on this and you want to make yours a little bit cooler, one thing you can do is get bits that mount on the side of the hard drives that are like heat sinks, for want of a better term. Passive heat sinks, yes, but it'll be something to remove the heat from the main body of the hard drive itself. And when the hard drive mounts in at the bottom, for those of you out there a little bit over too cautious, you can pick those up for about, like, I think about £10, maybe $15. Screw them in the sides where you would normally mount your hard drive into another case, and it will just sit there, and it just gives you a little bit more material there for you to be able to sink the heat off into. Obviously, the one of the things I did say was it might have been nice to have swapped the hard drives round to this side if you were overly worried about them, or you wanted to show them off. You can't do it, but it might have been nice if they had have done it. Long and story short though, is you can get uber amounts of radiators in here. There's plenty of room, you've got a massive window, and it all comes in at £70. It's also ATX size. It ticks all the boxes. Lovely big lovely big dust filter in the front, plenty of airflow. It's probably one of the better airflow designs for a Fractal case. Although it's not direct, it's still pretty well up there. So, OC3D Gold Award, goes without saying. One of the things I did want to say is it does look like they might have, kind of got the ideas from my case. But let's face it, my case only really got the front end of it sorted about 6 weeks ago. So there's no chance that they've turned around an entirely new case in that time. So although I would love to say this is a rip-off of my design, it's blatantly not. But it is quite funny that I did that to my R5, and I expect the designers and stuff at Fractal were laughing their arse off when I sent them pictures of my rig when they knew that this was the next thing getting shoved around the factory. So maybe we are I was probably a little bit delayed really, but it's still kind of nice because I had no idea this was coming. I would probably be a little bit more miffed if it was available in white, to be fair, so the fact it's not kind of calms me down a little bit, although I would love that massive window because it would show my hard drives off lovely. Now we've gone a little bit off of a tangent because we made it more about my rig than their rig. But anyway, I'm going to put a link underneath if you want to go and have a look at my server, because it's a 40 terabyte server. We've got an enormous RAID card going on it, which has actually got graphics card cooling going on there. So it's all a little bit OTT, TTL, mental, styly, lovely, bubbly. Follow the links underneath, you can go and have a look. But focusing on the Define RS, Christ, I'm in Ford mode. The Define S, cracking case, cracking price. Please give us a white one for those of us out there that don't just like the black stuff, although with white on the inside it does look rather nice. Thoroughly deserves the OC3D Gold Award, but for now at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan with another video for you. Out. Ding! Different ding. Ooh. Different